Welcome to the Cake Academy podcast, the podcast for cake makers who want to raise their standards, price with confidence, and build a business that actually works. I'm Cheryl, cake business coach and founder of Cheryl Bottomley Cake Academy and Tier & Co cake management software. And each week I'm going to be sharing honest conversations, practical strategies, and real industry insights to help you move from simply making cakes to running a profitable and sustainable cake business. So if you're ready to stop undercharging, stop second guessing, and start building something stronger, you are in the right place. So let's get into today's episode. Have you ever spent time designing a cake, sourcing ideas, putting a quote together, and maybe even doing tasting sessions and then heard nothing back? Or even worse, you found out a customer went to someone else. And that happened to me in the very early days of my cake business. For a long time, I kind of just thought it was part of the job, but it's not. It's basically a process problem that you can actually fix. And today I want to talk about something that I wish someone had told me much earlier on in my cake business journey, and that is to make sure that you take a booking fee before any work is carried out. So this one's quite a short one, but it's an important one this week. And I just wanted to tell a little bit about my own story in terms of how I used to do it and also how I do it now. So basically, when I first started out, my process went a little bit something like this. So an inquiry would come in. I would kind of give them a rough price, or I would give them a rough price. I would just give them my starting from prices. And then I would arrange a consultation where the customer would come to me. They would taste samples and we would sit together and talk through, what they wanted. I would also sketch out their ideas and, we'd fully sort of like discuss the design. And then I would send them away with all that information to think about. And then sometimes, well, most of the time, people would book, but then sometimes they wouldn't book. And the ones who didn't book, they're still left with everything. They'd tasted the cakes, they'd talked through the design in detail, and they had a pretty clear picture of what they wanted and what they were going to get from me. And all that meant that they could walk into another conversation with another cake maker, describe exactly what they were looking for and potentially get it made for less. And actually, not even describe what they were looking for. They could potentially give them the cake sketch. Now, I don't know if that actually ever happened, but, there were couples where I'd given the cake sketch to them and they didn't book with me. I'd done the consultation, I'd done the design work and the tasting for free. And in some cases, I had nothing to show for it. And as you know, if you probably do cake consultations and also sample boxes and things like that, it takes a long time. And there was another issue at that stage as well. I could have potentially have been doing the consultation anywhere from sort of like 12 months to 2 years before the actual wedding date. And realistically, it was way too early to be designing the cake in any real detail. And the reason for that is, as time goes on, preferences change. Sometimes venues change if they hadn't booked the venue. Themes change, colours change. And also, what I found was in some cases, I did end up doing design consultations more than once. And that was because over time, that couple would actually see new cakes that I was putting on my social media and they'd be like, oh, I like that. Oh, I like that. So, there's a lot of different things that you do need to be thinking about. So, I was putting in that time and that creative energy into something that might not have even basically turned into an order. And here's what I kind of want you to understand.
a booking fee, it's not just about the money. It's about commitment as well, and it's about a customer saying, yes, I want to work with you and I'm serious about that. So until that booking fee is paid, you don't have a booking, you have what you call an inquiry, and inquiries are not guaranteed income. So when you do the design work and you do the sourcing, detailed conversations or tasting before any fee is taken, you are, in theory, investing a lot of your time, your skills and your resource into something that's not yet confirmed. Now, I just do want to put a little caveat in here as well. So obviously some customers might want to taste your cakes before they go ahead and book, and that is fine. Now, this is going to be another podcast, but you should be charging for your cake samples. But your time as a small business is your most valuable asset. You know, we are busy, and a booking fee protects that as well. So let's just have a talk about actually what does this look like in practice. So you need to map out your process, and this, I would always say this to anyone, map out what that process you want to look like. So first, decide on what your booking fee is and make it a non-negotiable part of your process, and also make it non-refundable, because it is covering, you know, some of the work that you have been doing. And it should be enough to show commitment and also cover that time if an order falls through for whatever reason. Now, second, do not do any detailed designs or work like I did before that booking fee is paid. Obviously, you can have the conversations, you can talk about the style and the general direction, but don't sit down and design a cake for someone who's not committed to booking with you. Now, third, I do want you to think about when a tasting or consultation is actually needed as well. You are going to have some customers that will just go ahead and book with you. So those are what I call my happy customers, because they are perfect, because they kind of say, yeah, no, I want to book with you. I'm not bothered about tasting your cakes. You know, I know my cakes taste good. I've got lots and lots of reviews, but people still do want to taste them because they want to decide in terms of like what flavors they want on each of the tiers, things like that. But you need to, in your process, basically write that process down to show what that looks like for you and your business, okay? And you probably want to think about when you are offering samples as well. Now, most cake makers will only do them if you're doing wedding cakes at certain times throughout the year. So the process that I now follow is really simple. So an inquiry comes in, I give the customer all the information that they need to make that decision. They pay the booking fee or the book a sample box first. Then we move forward. So they get like an order form with the high level details. And then about 4 to 6 months before the wedding is when I book the cake consultation. And that is when we start to talk about detailed designs. Because at that point, they've probably decided what flowers they're having. They know what the colour themes are. They know probably like what all the decor is, things like that. But if you're doing all that work up front, this shift alone will change how you feel about your process. And it did, I'll be honest, it really did for me, because it's quite disheartening, isn't it, when you put all that work in and then you don't get that booking. It really is. I mean, don't get me wrong, it didn't happen that often, but it did. And I do want you to think about this, because it is a lot of work and you will end up tiring yourself out. So if you are currently doing a lot of work before any money changes hands, I want you to have a look at your process and just ask yourself where the commitment actually comes from your customer. Because, you know, you're running a business and you do deserve to have your time and expertise respected and paid for. And that clear booking fee process is how you make that happen. Now, if you want a place to manage your orders, track your bookings and keep your business organised from inquiry right through to delivery, have a look at Tier & Co, because there's a 14-day free trial and you can find the link in the show notes. What you can do within Tier & Co, specifically related to today's episode, is when you log an inquiry within the Tier & Co app, you can also log when a booking fee is being paid. You can also log in there if a sample box has been ordered. You can follow up with your inquiries and set dates for the follow-ups. So it really does streamline your business, so you know what's what's coming in when you need to make things. So yes, just pop into the show notes and you'll find the link there. So thank you for listening to this week's episode, and I will see you next week.
Thank you for listening to this episode of the Cake Academy podcast. If today's episode gave you clarity, challenged your thinking, or helped you look at your cake business differently, make sure that you check the show notes below for any links, tools, or resources that's been mentioned. If this episode helped you in any way, I'd really appreciate it if you shared it with another cake maker. You can leave a rating or you can write a review. These simple actions make a real difference and help more cake makers find practical, honest guidance for building a stronger business. You can also watch the full episode over on YouTube, where I share the full conversation and any visuals that supports today's topic. Thank you for being here, and I will see you in the next episode.